Hey guys, good evening. It's been a while. It is now 4:40 on the dot on the Saturday, and I have someone who not only inspired me to be a more humble person, but he is also a man who is hardworking but extremely kind. And I have to say, his family is the most nicest people I've ever seen. So, Patrick, if you could explain to people how you not only have used your own story, but to also show other people that simply um, just because you have something going on, it's important to speak up.
No, yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Evan, for hosting this podcast. So yeah, when I was a young kid, I would say around like 12 or 13, actually, 13 years old. I was struggling with mental health and depression. There was a girl I really liked in school, and I thought she liked me, and I liked her, and I thought like, hey, we could be friends and some friends. Like I kind of took it too far a little bit, I wanted to like be like BFFs or like be like her boyfriend, but I found out like later on that she really didn't like me the way I thought she liked me, and she pretty much used and manipulated me. Like she didn't want me sitting at her lunch table. And then there was a time like where like I wrote kind of like a love letter on Valentine's Day, and like she thought it was a little too much, I think, and to distance herself from me. Like she didn't want me texting her anymore. And then a couple weeks later, she thought that I was spreading rumors around the school, pretty much telling everybody that I was her boyfriend. I told her I didn't do it. I didn't do it, and like she didn't really want to believe me. And then it didn't work out. It was a very frustrating school year. And then like the next year, like I thought maybe she got over it a little bit, but I made the mistake of like trying to be friends with her again because apparently her parents didn't like the idea of being friends with her a lot, or being friends with her. So and this was a little bit after my birthday that year because I invited her to my birthday party. I went really, my 24-year-old self now says you probably shouldn't have got into contact with her again that school year. And luckily for me, she um, couldn't be friends with me anymore. Like just looking back on it, it was probably a good idea because it's not good to be around people who like to manipulate and want to just hurt people. And then like from there was that this was eighth grade, and I was really struggling in school. I had a hard time with science and math, and I had to take these tests called the Regents exams.
Yep,
So
I've taken those. I get it.
no, yeah, so I was really struggling in this topic called living environment, and I was doing the best I could to go to all the extra help sessions, do all the homeworks to, just pass the class. But I ended up passing that region by a couple points, but I failed the algebra region by 3 points. So I ended up having to retake the test in August. So that was like the first, time like I really felt like down about myself, or second time I should say. And then luckily I was able to pass that test by 7 points in the summer, so I didn't have to worry about that anymore, and moved on to the next math class in my freshman year of high school. So then the following school year, my freshman year, I had to take three of them, the three Regents exams. I had to take a U.S. history Regent. I had to take um, an earth science Regent, and I had to take a geometry Regent. Now, the geometry class was pretty much like the living environment class the previous year, where I was just barely passing the class. I pretty much probably the only way I passed the class was doing the homeworks and doing the best I could to maybe do test corrections or whatever. And so I took that. I had to take that Regent, and I failed the region. But luckily in New York State, you don't need to pass 2 math regions to graduate. You only have to pass one. So I really shouldn't have focused a lot of my attention on that region. So it's almost like I put all my eggs in one basket, because I actually ended up failing the region that I thought I was going to do well in, which was the U.S. history region. And I actually had a 90, probably had a little bit over a 90 average in that class. And it was really a shame, because both of those regions I failed, the algebra and the U.S. history region. Around that time, I was not feeling well. Like I kept calling out sick. I just wasn't feeling good, and I had to miss study sessions like during like a really crucial time. So I failed. So in other words, I failed 2 regents in a row, back to back school years. So I had to retake that test again in August, and then I kind of, like out of nowhere was when I was really struggling with intrusive thoughts. You know, like they were like these really intense thoughts of like me like trying to harm people, like especially one of the person who I loved the most, which was my grandmother. And like I was like, why are these thoughts coming in all of a sudden? And I think it was probably because of all the anxiety that I had to deal with that year, trying to pass the classes. And just so everybody on the show knows, I played baseball for the school. I played middle school baseball, I played JV baseball, and I played varsity baseball. So when I was playing ball, that was really when everybody was prepping for the test. So I couldn't make it to the extra help sessions all the time, but I was able to attend some of them. Like I needed to play baseball just so I wouldn't feel so trapped into all the schoolwork, because I was already kind of drowning. But like just playing baseball was like one of my releases to my anxiety and depression, as well as playing travel baseball over the summer. So I saw, getting back to the regions, the U.S. history region, I ended up passing that test. I had a pretty good score. I actually got a little over mastery. In August, I got an 88 on the test. Thank you. And then the following year, I had to take world history. I don't think I had any regencies that year, because I only took a couple months of algebra 2 trig, and I didn't really like it. It was too hard for me. So I ended up taking financial math. But like that beginning of the school year was like when I had to, tell a psychologist that like I was really struggling with these thoughts, and like I thought about taking my own life away. Now that story, and I should have backed up a little bit, but that story and the girl being manipulative, and kind of pretty much rejecting me, led me to suicide attempt the first time. Not suicide attempt, but just talking about it with like a psychiatrist or psychologist. So like those 2 times was when I was really feeling down about myself, and like how I overcame it, like was going to the gym and playing baseball, and asking for help. And there was one time where my psychologist, he brought up a really good analogy that would like help me take care of the intrusive thoughts. I'm sure your viewers have heard of the show of SpongeBob.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So like my psychologist, because like the intrusive thought of like harming like my grandmother like involved like a gun and like shooting her, like, and he just said pretend like the bullet is at SpongeBob instead of like your grandmother. So like I kind of felt like good about that. And then like I kind of didn't really have the interest. I didn't have the thought as much. Like it was one of those thoughts that just popped into my head. I didn't want it in my head. It just happened. So then like that thought started to fade away a little bit. And then like I had another thought, not that year, but really the following year, my junior year. Because I was crushing on another girl, and we weren't really. I was really more family friends with her cousin, because my crush and her cousin were in my grade, and they had a baby cousin that she passed away from SIDS back when we were in 7th grade. So like at that time was like when I was struggling with like the girl manipulating me and using me. So I didn't really think much of it at that time, but that year, because I really liked her, like I thought about like asking her out, going on a date with her. Like I was afraid that like that was going to come up like in conversation, like about her baby cousin. Again, like this, I had this thought of like pretty much mocking the whole thing, and then that caused me to feel like suicidal because like I would never say something like terrible about somebody's death. So I ended up one day, because I was actually really sick that school year. I had asthma for a good 3 months. But like, I don't know what caused it, but I had it for like the longest time, and it was pretty much like trial and error, where I was figuring out whether or not to do a nebulizer or to do inhalers. What ultimately I guess worked was the nebulizer. So I pretty much at that point I was like playing varsity ball, and I couldn't really play because I was like sick all the time. I only played in a few games, and and
It's okay. It's
and
okay.
I had to miss I had to miss some games because I wasn't feeling well, and I had to miss like the last half of school um for the last half of the school years. So I really struggled with that intrusive thought. And then like over the summer, like I was like over the summer I saw her working as a lifeguard, and like I saw her like it was a very good conversation. Like it was a short one, but it was fine. But then like I was really anxious for my senior year, and I ended up not going to senior year because I had that thought in my head. So like I pretty much like ruined an opportunity because of my own anxiety. So that's like something I kind of like regret maybe a little bit, but maybe not looking back on it now, because like the girl I had a crush on, she found a boyfriend like in the middle of my senior year, and they were going out for a little bit, and then she actually went to the University of South Carolina to for a degree in education, and she actually lives down there now. So it wouldn't have worked out anyway. But I still like I still had the thought in my head. But then like um a couple years later, after I graduated high school, when I was at Nassau, it was my second year. It was I think it was my fourth semester there, so it was January 2019. And that was when my grandmother, she fell out of my grandfather's car on her way to the beauty parlor, and she ended up breaking her ankle, and she had to go to the hospital to get it checked. And like, thank God she kind of went, I guess, because when she went, they checked, like your blood sugar and stuff, and her blood sugar was through the roof. It was really high. And like they were pretty much saying like, thank God you're here, because like if you weren't here you probably would be dead on the floor in 2 weeks. Her blood sugar was at around 700, so that's a pretty toxic level for blood sugar to be. So like at that point she was pretty much in and out of hospitals dealing with diabetes, her ankle, and then she ended up developing dementia, Alzheimer's. So it was somewhat of a struggle to visit her in the nursing homes and visit her when she got home. And then like there was one point during Christmas, it was like 2020. It was the last Christmas I saw her before she passed last December. I think she had a 24/7 aide at the house. My grandmother lived with my aunt and uncle, so my grandmother lived upstairs and my aunt and uncle lived downstairs. And the aide was trying to, I guess, get her dressed and stuff. And then like my grandmother called her like a bitch. So like I was like, wow, this is like a side of my grandmother that I've never saw before. And then like and then I was like, maybe she has a shot of making it to next Christmas. Like maybe she has a shot of living a couple more years. So then like I remember I visited her like by myself and on Valentine's Day of 21, and I actually got her a book about like prayers and Bible verses for grandmothers, and she really appreciated the gesture and the gift. even though my grandfather was saying like, ah, she's not gonna read it, she's not gonna read it, but she just liked the thought of me being there. And then she's like, you can come back anytime. But then like with her dementia, Alzheimer's, like I really couldn't, because with those type of people, they either act good one day or they act bad the next day. So I didn't want to, go over there on a day where she could be acting out. But there was one day I actually went before my trip to Florida last June of 2021. And I remember that visit, she wasn't really talking a whole lot. So like that got me a little bit nervous. And I was thinking about her nonstop afterwards. And during the trip I went to Florida with my parents and my brother, Sean, um, she was just constantly like on my mind, like maybe she is gonna, pass away soon. So like I remember, and at that time, like I remember I was really killing it at the gym, like working out. I was getting big. I probably gained a good 10, 15 pounds. And then like by the time October hit of 21, she ended up getting bed sores, and she had kidney stones, UTIs, and then she had to go to the hospital, and then she had to go to a nursing home, and then she contracted COVID, and she had to go to the hospital again. And that was the last time I was able to see her. Now I couldn't physically be in the hospital because she had COVID, but I was able to do what we're doing now on a Zoom call, and I was able to say, I love you, and that unfortunately was the last time I saw her, because she ended up passing away like a month and like 10, 15, 10, 12 days later. She passed away on December 16th of 2021. And like that loss was probably the hardest loss I've ever had to deal with in my life, because she was my everything. Like I had like the guilt of having the intrusive thoughts of like killing her. And like we had so many memories together, just watching baseball games. Even though she was a Met fan, I'm a Yankee fan, we still watched baseball. And I remember she made me like scrambled eggs once. She made me ice cream. One time we went to Prospect Park in her old neighborhood in Brooklyn, and we used to go to church and IHOP on her birthdays.
IHOP, love IHOP.
Yeah, she loved IHOPs, but again, like she actually had, I think, a little too much IHOP, which kind of caused maybe some of the diabetes. And like she loved her sweets, like she loved ice cream, she loved cakes. So like apparently, I guess that's what drove her blood sugar up. But yeah, that loss was probably the hardest loss in my life, because at that time I was working only 3 days a week. I worked for the town of Oyster Bay. And at that time, I was working at a place called Syosset Woodbury Park. And it's a big park. They have like baseball fields. They have basketball courts, handball courts, tennis courts, and they have a hockey rink, ice skating rink. And I was only asked to work over the weekends. So like while I was in the midst of my grief, I was pretty much home by myself, not doing anything other than sleeping and just grieving the loss. And like that was really difficult. And like that, even like that and then about a month later, my Instagram account got hacked. So I really couldn't get all the followers I wanted back, because they thought I was maybe an impersonator of the old account. So including the girl that I like that um lives in South Carolina. So like that was pretty hard, because I guess she was dating a boyfriend. But like even like I'm surprised like she didn't even like reach out to me and say like, like I'm sorry for your loss. Like because she was still following me at that time on Instagram. But I guess it is what it is. But but yeah, I was really struggling with that for for a few months actually. Not even actually, I shouldn't even say a few months. I was struggling probably for the first like 7 or 8 months of the year of 2022. Like I was very tired most of the time. I was suicidal. Like I was taking antidepressants, and unfortunately, like those pills made me feel even more tired. And so like I was constantly exhausted all the time. and like while like I'm still kind of like grieving a little bit, there is hope out there, you know. Like just because like someone in your family pass away, it doesn't mean that you're not going to see them again in that beautiful place called heaven. You know, like I have that hope that I'm going to see her again in heaven. Um, and while I still I can't believe like she's gone, it's just the reality that I'm going to see her again, and I just inspire people that who are going through like depression, anxiety, and maybe grief. You know, you still have time left to change. You know, but it doesn't have to be like this forever. And life and this life is very temporary. You know, we're not going to be here all of our lives. Like one day, sooner or later, we're gonna pass on. So it's very important to make the most out of life. Like unfortunately now, I don't have the motivation to like work out or play baseball like all like the things I used to want to do because of my grandmother's death. But I think sooner or later, with the help of God and other people, I'll start to feel motivated again. And maybe it could be the foods that I'm eating because sometimes some of the foods I eat aren't good, and I probably need to eat foods that would help me, I guess, stay motivated. I actually found something on my email before, related to mental health in the brain.
True, it's true.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
true.
I think it was called. I think the what email was called Natural Health Solutions 365, and I actually found something about Alzheimer's dementia on there. So
Yeah,
like
it's true.
I ended up buying. It was called the Alzheimer's and Dementia Summit. It was like $69 because I really like wanted to know what was behind all of my grandmother's Alzheimer's dementia, and like I still have yet to like look at it, but there's gonna be like one day I think, because one day there's usually one day in your life like where it's like you feel like you know what, like enough of this crap anymore. Well, let me just go move on and stay and get motivated again, and I'm not gonna just waste this life away. So
Right.
but so so that's pretty much like my story for now, but I expect maybe a breakthrough in the next few months or so. Eh, so yeah.
Well, first of all, Pat, I gotta say, I'm sorry if I'm tearing up. Out of all of the shows I've had, um, hearing your story, um, because I know I've been, um, because it's the first time hearing your story. Out of all the shows I've had on this, I'm sorry, out of all the people I've had on this show, um, I have to say, hearing your story was by far, I'm in awe. I'm absolute awe. And actually, I'm not sure if you know, I was telling you a few weeks ago, I also had to see, I also had to see um my um
It's okay.
yes, yes. I do. I was telling you weeks ago. I also, unfortunately, had a very similar situation to yours. Basically, um, you know, I basically had to see my my my
You
um
got this. You got this.
yeah, it's been a week. I fortunately had to see my grandmother after she passed, and seeing that, it was not easy at all. I
No.
I trust me, I get it, and you know what? And unfortunately, I hear people, oh, it's been too long. No, because there is no set time. It could be 5 minutes, 5 months, 5 years,
Yeah,
and and
you're
also,
right about that. Yeah. Yeah, you can't, like when you have a death in the family, and that person is so close to you, it's not like you can just get over it
Can't.
in 2 weeks or 2 days or so. Like you just can't do it. Like although when my grandfather passed away 5 years ago, my grief wasn't as intense
Yeah.
as it was with my grandmother because I wasn't as close with my grandfather. Although we did have a good set of memories together. You know, like he was a devout Christian. Um, he also lived up in the Poconos, and he lived
Oh,
probably a
nice.
little over 2 hours away from me. And we went to some baseball games together. You know, we went to Disney together. So like we had a really and he actually lived like a full life. You
Yeah.
know, he went to the Holy Land a couple times.
Where?
He went to a couple the Holy Land in
Oh, overseas, Israel,
yeah,
right?
in Jerusalem, and
I've been there.
I think Israel as well.
Mm.
And he went to a lot of international countries as well. He's been to Japan. I think he's been to China, Italy,
Oh,
Germany, Ireland, and he's pretty much visited all 50 states. I think he visited I think a little over 40 states. He didn't visit all 50, but he went to a little over 40 states, and he lived like we had a picture of him actually down here at one point. He was running a half marathon on Long Island because he used to live in New York with my father and his family. But yeah, he lived a very full life, and like yeah, I was sad like when he like passed away because he actually passed away at 82, and my grandmother passed away at 84.
wow.
Um, but I feel as if he lived like a complete life versus like my grandmother, like where she really didn't live a complete life, and she pretty much spent a lot of time at home, you know, not wanting to go up and about all the time. Like every once in a while she went to the beauty parlor. She used to play cards with her friends. But then I think when her brother passed away, her older brother passed away in 2016, that kind of really started, I guess, her decline a little bit because, you know, she was also feeling anxious and depressed. Like, because I remember when she was suffering with her ankle in the nursing homes and at home, because they had to bring a hospital bed in. Actually, she was discharged from the nursing home. I remember the last time I physically saw her, she was very upset about the fact that her brother isn't here anymore. And it was almost 5 years. So grief can, you know, really weigh you down
Yeah.
depending on the type of bond you've had with that person.
Yes.
And like my grandmother was my person, you know. Like I used to love visiting her, even though like my cousins lived downstairs. I always made a point to go visit her
Mm.
and just talk about life. Like, you know, like she gave me really really good advice. Like don't give up. You know, like I actually called her when Sean, my brother, had a really tough going at Nassau, and like this was actually right before she broke her ankle. Like she tried to calm me down a little bit, but like now, like I don't have that person to talk to anymore, unfortunately. So it's like you have to wait pretty much your whole life to, you know, just and then pass away, and then you just see them again. So,
Okay.
but I've hoped that I'll find like a person that kind of embodied what my grandmother was like. But yeah, a death in the family, you can't get over it like in a short period of time. Like you can't just say like, you know, like move on. You know, like some people have it worse than you. No, that's just a form of gaslighting right there.
Yeah.
And you know, you have to grieve
Yes.
on your own terms,
Yes.
and you have to take your time with it. Otherwise, you're just gonna go back to square one.
Yes.
You know, if you move on too quickly and then you just delay the process, you have to just allow the process to flow, and you have to just, you know, it all has to be natural. You can't force to be okay when you're really not okay, and that's
I'm
also like what I've learned.
I'm sorry because I'm not sure if you've seen the screen. It's gonna end in a few minutes, so I just have
Oh,
to finish everything up. But
okay.
wait, but Patrick, but before you go, first of all, I turned the screen, but hug, hug.
Yeah.
Give me a hug, buddy. Give me a hug. Air hug. You
I'm
know,
sorry.
it's okay. Air hug. But no, but I really like I said, out of all the people out of my show, I'm in awe. And I tell people, even though a person we love is not here, like in the flesh, their spirit is always here,
Yes,
right? It's very true.
absolutely.
And
No question.
it's also important to just sit down, having a bad day, and say, you know what? Because at the end of the day, all of them are up there, up above. So it's for me. Sometimes I ask God and so, if you are able to, see what's going on, if you could just please send something, whether it's stressed out, just asking um um God, and just for strength,
Yes.
because
Mm-hmm.
that is what, especially what is needed now.
Mm-hmm.
Strength and courage. And to all the people, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I know every person finding it's in every person has their own set time. But if you
Mm-hmm.
continue just to get up every time you knock down, and get up stronger and taller, it will be found. And Patrick, again,
Yes.
thank you for sharing that. In the future,
Yes.
in the springtime or the summertime, I'll be very excited to finally, have some time to be able to see you again.
Yes, absolutely. Any time is good. When I see you, it's all good.
All right, buddy. Listen, stay warm again. Really, that was
Yes, you
I
too.
like hearing that. All right,
You
buddy. I'll see
too.
you soon, okay?
Okay, see you soon.